All right, on tonight's episode of Python Papi, we're back inside our generative AI course, and we're still putting the finishing touches on our front end of our medical chatbot. Let's have a look at what we went over tonight. Tonight we did start two additional files, or we started filling out two of our additional folders. So we're gonna do some light reading, and I'll show you exactly what went into those folders. So where do we start at? Let's start here. We will start by adding the def load function to the helper.py file in our src folder. You also have to remember to bring over the imports that are needed for this load function. This is the import that we need from langchain.document loaders import py loader, and then we're going to bring over the directory loader also. The next thing we need to add to the helper.py file is the def text splitter function. We must also bring over the imports for this too. This is the import we will be using for that, and it's going to be the from langchain.text splitter import recursive character text splitter. Next, we will need to add the def download huggy face function. This is the import we will be using for that. It's going to go from langchain.embeddings import huggy face embeddings. Basically, this helper file will hold our functions, which allows us to call them one by one, which allows us to call them one by one when needed instead of having to repeatedly write them out. Next, we will be using the store.py file to push our vector to the vector DB. Now, if we want to push our vector to the vector DB, the first thing we need to do is load our PDF file, which we are getting our data from. Next, we will load the text split function, and lastly, the download huggy face embeddings function also will get imported over. So first, let me show you the helper.py file. So this is our helper.py files. You can see these are the imports we brought over, and these are the we brought over all of not all the functions, but most of the functions. It might be this is just some of them. This is not all of the functions, but most of the functions. We have the define load PDF, define text split, and then the define huggy face embeddings. And this is our helper.py file here. So we're gonna store all of our functions over here eventually. I'm assuming. And this is our store. Well, let me not get into the store just yet because there's more stuff going on over here in the store. So we see that we got the huggy face embeddings function. Okay, all of these imports will come directly from our src folder, which we designated to be our local package. Next, we need to import the pinecone to this folder. Now, these are imports we use to do that. So first, we got the from langchain.vector stores import pinecone, and then we're going to import pinecone on its own. So these are two different imports here. You can see one has a capital P, one has a lowercase p. They're both designed to do two different things. So they're from two different places. Then we need to load our PDF package. This is the input we use to do that. So you can see here we from dot env import load dot env. This particular package will allow us to read our .env file where we keep our sensitive and private information. Like I explained to you yesterday, that .env file is the file that doesn't get carried over to GitHub because it's considered like a classified file, so the things inside it or certain folders inside it won't be recognized inside of GitHub. Matter of fact, this whole .env folder won't go over to GitHub anyway, so yeah. Now we also need to import the OS. That's pretty standard now because we are using that, and it's built-in library inside of Python. So that's why it gets overlooked sometimes. But we do need to import that also. And the next thing we need to do is load our .env file inside our store index file. That's just how we will load that, or this is how we will start that process. So you can see you have the load underscore .env function. And next, we will use the OS to read our private key like this. We have the Pinecone API key equals os.environ.get. Then you have our Pinecone key. Note we would do the same thing for the environment, but only if we're using the Pinecone environment. If we're not using the Pinecone environment, remember we can bypass this step. But if we are using the environment, this is what we have to use to actually access it here. Now we can use the print function and check if our key and environment are being read properly. You will just simply print out the print Pinecone API key and the print Pinecone API env, and it should print out the secret key, and it should print out the environment name when we want to check and see if everything is being read properly. So this is only optional. It can be commented out or removed altogether once we are sure. If we aren't sure, this is something we can do to actually get sure and make sure that those are being read properly. but it's not necessary for the code, so we can comment it out or remove it altogether once we are sure if we don't need them at all. Now we're ready to load our PDF. This is how we would do that. So we have our extracted data equals load PDF, and then data, this line of code will load our, this is supposed to be PDF. Next, we would need to implement a text splitter to get our text chunks. This is the line of code we will use for that. Let me show you that. So we have the text chunks equals text split. Then we're going to pass in as a param to extract the data. After we get our chunks, we need to get our embeddings. This is the line of code we will use for that. If our embeddings equals download Huggy Face embeddings. Now we can check our store to make sure everything is over here that we said we needed. So you can see we have our imports first and foremost. Now, if you notice, the src.helper isn't actually being read as a local package yet because didn't go through the process of actually installing it as a local package. Because with that, I would have to do the requirements also, and the requirements have different pip imports and installs that are needed. So I don't want to put it right here on my local machine because it may affect what I already have pip installed. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably open up another Google Colab notebook or maybe a Jupyter notebook and do everything over there. So that's why src.helper file isn't being read as our local package as of now because I haven't gone through the steps of making it such. I just went through the motions of taking the notes on how we can do it. So when we're ready to do it, we can do it. So that's that. So these are all our imports and everything we need. Then we have our load.env function. Then we have our pinecone key in environment. Then I told you how we print the pinecone key in the environment to make sure everything's being read. Then you have our extracted data. Then we have our text chunks. And then we have our embeddings. So basically, we're putting the pieces to our front end piece by piece. We're actually getting everything in order to actually start implementing these things. And we can actually get our front end going, and we can have our users, mainly you guys, test out our work for us once we get everything up and running properly. But of course, I will keep you posted every step of the way. For now, this is the Python Papi. You guys stay Gucci.